Hey guys, really excited to roll out this new feature to you, our more advanced support for sales tax. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to talk about how do we configure our sales tax, how do we add it to a proposal and default settings for proposals, and then how this integrates with QuickBooks. There's some nuances when it comes to QuickBooks support based on how QuickBooks allows us to send them data. So we'll get into those nuances towards the end of this video. So let's jump in. So on the left-hand side of your screen, all of these settings are going to be under organization settings. Go to organization info. Once we're here, you'll see this new organization tax rates settings that you have. So you won't have any by default. You can click add sales tax and that'll create a new row and you can start adding your sales taxes in here. Before you pause this video and start pumping through these and adding your taxes, if you use QuickBooks, if you have linked Bitumio to QuickBooks, please watch through the end of this video because there are some nuances, as I mentioned earlier, to how you have to set up these taxes to push through properly to QuickBooks, okay? So enter your tax name. I've got Utah tax, resort tax. I'm gonna add another one here that's called Idaho sales tax. And this percentage is going to be 5%. You have the option to toggle these on by default or not. This means that every time I create a proposal, I am going to add this tax to the proposal by default. You can remove these optionally from the proposal. So there'll be a section of the proposal I'll show you where you can add or remove various sales taxes, but by toggling this on, this tax rate will be added to every proposal by default, and you'll have to remove it manually if you do not add it, or if you do not want it, excuse me. If you have linked your QuickBooks account with our system, you'll see this section. If you have not, this will be blank. This is going to pull in the tax rates, the tax codes that you have within your QuickBooks Online account. So right now I have two, a Utah Weber County one and an Idaho tax rate. If I show you what that looks like within QuickBooks, here I have my Utah State Tax Commission, and here I've got this other custom tax rate. I've got these various line items and they add up to be 5%. So for the sake of this one, I'm gonna have Idaho sales tax and I'm gonna select my Idaho tax rate. And for the sake of this one, I'm gonna select my Utah Weber tax rate. Now, this is one of the nuances of QuickBooks. So here under my Idaho tax rate, I have a combined rate of 5%, where the first one, I have an Idaho Lava Hot Springs kind of municipality county tax of 2.1%. And here I have the Idaho State Tax Commission of 2.9%. QuickBooks will not allow us to send multiple tax rates, multiple different individual tax rates to them for the same proposal, or sorry, for the same invoice. So what that means is if you create an Idaho Lava Hot Springs tax and an Idaho State Tax Commission, kind of like this, it's the Idaho State, and this is Lava, it's actually pronounced Lava Hot Springs, and this one's going to be 2.9 and this one's going to be 2.1. If you added both of these to the proposal, you win that proposal, you send it. First of all, notice that there's not individual Lava Hot Springs or Idaho State tax. There's only one lump sum Idaho tax rate. So if you added both of these to a proposal, you then won that proposal and tried to push this to QuickBooks, you'll get a warning that says, hey, sorry, taxes were not pushed to QuickBooks for this invoice because there are multiple tax rates associated to this proposal. This is a limitation of QuickBooks not allowing us to send individual tax rates to them within the same invoice. So what needs to happen if you want to push these to QuickBooks automatically is you'll have this Idaho sales tax at 5%, which is the combined tax rate of 5% here. 2.9 plus 2.1 is 5%. And then within the proposal, instead of adding multiple tax codes, you'll just add this one tax code for Idaho tax rate to the proposal for any work that you're doing there. So yes, this means that if you want taxes to flow automatically to QuickBooks, you'll have to create various, let's call them combinations of taxes here that you can add to the proposal that would match to these combined rates, these buckets of rates that you have within QuickBooks. So here I've got my Utah, here I've got my Idaho. I do most of my work in Utah, so I'm just gonna leave this one on by default. And then when I do an Idaho job, I'll jump in there and I'll swap this one for that one, or vice versa. Or if you want to do everything manually because you don't want to add the wrong tax code, you can toggle this off and not have anything by default. So now that I've got these set up, I'm going to hit save. Saved. Let's jump into a proposal. All right, I'm in this proposal. We've already started it just for the sake of this demonstration here for QuickBooks. I'm going to add a product to the proposal. I'm going to add a job size, 12,500 square feet. Now when we come down here, you'll notice we have two new columns here, subtotal and we have tax. So subtotal being your direct costs plus your overhead plus your indirect plus your profit will give you your subtotal. So total cost plus profit equals subtotal. We're going to add your tax to get to your total, okay? You'll notice this little pencil here. I'm going to click on that pencil. You can see that Utah sales tax has been added automatically because we toggled that on by default. If I wanted to add another tax, I could select this and save. Now this number will recalculate and update your total. Your subtotal and everything's going to stay the same because this is just a tax on top of your cost and profit, right? So we've got our total amount. For the sake of this one, I know I only want my Utah sales tax to push over into QuickBooks. So this is a combination. Maybe I'll change this to my Idaho because this is a combination of my Idaho state sales tax and my Lava Hot Springs municipal tax of 5%. So 2.1% plus 2.9% equals my 5% tax. I'll add this, we'll sum that up, and we've got our total. So I can send this to myself. I'm just gonna send it to that dummy email address. And now I can view this proposal. Now this is going to be a little bit different as well, because now we have our subtotal in the proposal. We're showing our proposal tax to get to our proposal total. Now, this section down here will only appear if you have taxes on that proposal. So if you're not using taxes, there's some places in the country that are not required to charge a service tax. This will not appear. This will be blank. You won't even see it like you did not see it previously. So I can move this to closed one, just like I used to. I've got this proposal, and now let's go into our job. So here's our parking lot overlay that we just did. And we still have this same push to QuickBooks button here. So I can push this to QuickBooks. Operation successful. And I'll show you what this looks like now within QuickBooks. So here we have, let me refresh my invoices page to get that latest invoice. Here we have this customer. I'll edit this. Now, because we've synced our QuickBooks account and because we've linked our Idaho state sales tax with our Idaho sales tax within QuickBooks, we can see the math here that Idaho tax rate has been applied at 5%. So we've got $30,767.04 plus the $1538.35 for a total of $32,305.39. And when we look at this proposal, we're going to see those same amounts. So $1538.35 in tax, $15,38.35 in tax, $32,305.39, $32,305.309. So these match. So that's the caveat that you've got to be aware of within QuickBooks is we can only push one tax rate, in this case, this Idaho tax rate, the combined, into QuickBooks for a given invoice. So if you have a local tax plus we can only push one tax rate into QuickBooks for a given invoice. So there's a couple options here. If you have a local tax plus other taxes elsewhere, you can create a combined tax rate, kind of a custom combined tax rate by editing this and adding additional rates here. You can do combined here, selecting the agency. So I can do a Utah tax commission and an Idaho tax commission and others all in the same bucket here. So maybe my Utah is 7.25, which I know. This is 2.1. That's my lava one. Here's my Idaho state for 2.9, right? Yada, yada. So Idaho, lava, Utah, full combined tax rate. So now within Bitumio, I would create a tax rate at 12.25%. And if I needed to charge all of these different taxes, that's the one that I would select in my proposal so that when I pushed it over here, I'm only pushing a single tax code into QuickBooks. That's option one. Option two, if you wanted to, you can create all of your different individual tax rates within Bitumio. So you could do a 2.1%, a 2.9%, et cetera, and have all of your tax codes and then optionally select them from within the proposal. When you push that to QuickBooks, you will get a blue warning that says, hey, heads up, taxes were not applied to this invoice because multiple tax codes were associated to this proposal. Please make sure you associate taxes to the invoice within QuickBooks, something to that effect. And you can come down to this and manually associate a sales tax to it. However, even QuickBooks is only going to allow you to select one of your tax rates. So even then, like here's your full combined rate is 12.25 and 5%. Even then, you're only going to be able to select one of those options, just like we're only able to send one of these options. You're not going to be able to pick and choose from a list, at least not that I'm aware of. You accountants out there, you might know of a better way. I'm not aware of a way. So you're only going to be able to select one of these or the automatic calculation of your location. So just a heads up that you can do it either way, but just note that you're still only going to be able to select one of these custom combined tax rates, not from a list of various tax rates. So just a heads up there's two options. Lump them together in one, or two, set them up individually. You'll just have to match the taxes, add the correct tax rates to the invoice in QuickBooks after you push that over to QuickBooks. This is a limitation from QuickBooks that we're not able to get around. They only allow a single tax code to be associated to an invoice when we create it. We're really excited to bring this out to you. Hopefully you find this very useful and very flexible in what you're doing, and let us know if you have any questions.